And I was in DC when I had the idea for Icy Change on the back of a napkin. And I got funding, though, to do it in rural Colorado, in a town of less than 2,000, around 2,000 people. Half the town worked in coal mines, so I resonate with that story in particular. And they were not going to have a climate change startup project in their town. So we had to find ways to have a conversation about climate change in this town. I did not originally want to go. Again, I didn't, as a reporter with a career, I said, well, this project is not about, the Peace Corps of journalism. Like, this is something bigger. It was very arrogant, actually. And I landed in the town, and the main street was like 3 blocks long, and I cried the first day. But we had 9 months of funding to try out something completely different in terms of digital media, public radio, and this climate change idea of crowdsourcing. And working in that town, people would stop me in the street and tell me how to do Icy Change better. We learned incredible innovations from this community of ranchers and farmers and gardeners who pay attention to change and are impacted by it daily. Farmers, beekeepers, when their bees are waking up in January, we know there's a problem in Colorado. So, and they showed us during a very anomalous weather year in 2012, on par with the Dust Bowl it proved out to be, that farmers, I'd say, well, how do you adapt to extremes like this? And he said, well, and got up, a farmer went and got a composition notebook off a shelf and showed me. He's like, well, this is like 1977. And he opened it up, and there was like a little story with a little bit of data about what he did on his farm, how he adapted to change, what was going on with the weather. And I realized, it was like reading a tweet from the Dust Bowl. And we actually found journals that go back to the Dust Bowl of people doing this. It was an incredible innovation and insight about how to adapt to climate change. But it had never been digitized, it had never been socialized. We never added sensors or satellites to this kind of very fundamental way of talking about how weather and climate impact our daily lives. I mean, that was the big moment, right? It was just realizing how much talent and how much insight were in these tiny towns, and a lot of the assumptions that we bring to the table don't really hold weight. And so a lot of the techniques we deployed in New York. So this idea of keeping track of our stories next to the data, we used that technique in Harlem. We put sensors inside people's apartments in public housing and had them tell us stories about how they were feeling, and monitored indoor urban heat, managed to change heat policy in New York City, cooling center policies in New York. So again, that was a technique that we developed in a rural community. In terms of the innovations being able to scale, being able to, I just think you can't see your product working unless you're close to it, really, and being close to the problem and close to its implementation really matters, particularly when it comes to climate change, because it's a global phenomenon, but has very uniquely local impacts. So that little data really matters. And we found that we can actually verify the models, we can ground truth them, and we can show them where the models are wrong, because they just don't have the scale. They don't have the granularity. And when they do, even if you have a very fine data product, it provides no context. Right? Community members can help provide the insights that the data can't. And so that little data actually, I found, is harder to get, more valuable, and big data is missing out on little data in more ways than one.